Karen Reed. It's a murder trial in Massachusetts, and this one will be before the cameras. It's just getting underway. Vinnie, you guys, I'm sure, are going to be all over it at Court TV. Outline what it's about for us.
Well, there's Karen Reed is dating a Boston police officer, Officer John O'Keefe. They go out for a night of drinking in Boston, but it's a cold night and there's a storm that's coming. So they meet a bunch of friends at the bars where they're kind of bar hopping around. And there's an after party at one of the officers' homes. So when they're done at the bar, Karen gets behind the wheel, John O'Keefe gets in the car, and they drive to that friend's house. And this is where the story, one of two things happens, depending upon whether you believe the prosecution or defense. According to the prosecution, John O'Keefe gets out of the car. They're having some sort of an argument. And Karen Reed, while she's doing a K-turn to kind of turn around and head back where she came from because she decided not to go to that party, purposely runs over her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, and leaves him on the front lawn of that home in the cold to die. That's what the prosecution says. What the defense says happened is that Karen Reed dropped him off. He went inside the house. Something happened in the house. There was a confrontation. There was a fight. He was beaten up. He was attacked by the dog, and they dragged his body out onto the front lawn, and they framed Karen Reed for murder by taking pieces of her broken tail light and putting it on his body. So those are the two versions of what happened. So it's either murder, according to the prosecution, or she's being framed and it's a police conspiracy cover-up from the defense perspective. And in the middle is she was drunk and accidentally hit him. But she's not charged with that, and she's not admitting that, although that was the original charge against her before they upped it to murder after they found some voicemail messages that were left, and they tested her backup camera and found that it was working. So based upon that, the prosecution believes it's murder. But that's just half the story. That's just half the story. The other story is what's happening outside the courthouse, because this case was picked up by a local, he's on YouTube. He's a former teacher, and he picked this up. His name is Turtle Boy, and he has all these followers who are called Turtle Riders, Megyn, Turtle Riders. And a couple hundred of them have been showing up at every hearing, protesting the charges against Karen Reed, carrying free Karen Reed signs and believing that there's a police conspiracy here. So this has completely divided the town. And right now we're in jury selection, and it's not moving as quickly as the jury selection for the most famous man on the planet.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing, by the way, how fast the Trump trial is moving. I'm like, the judge says we're going to have a jury picked by Monday, and opening statements will be on Monday, he expects, in the Trump trial. You're right. Karen Reed's going to take longer. Jonna, what's your initial impression of this case? Because I went both ways. I'm just getting up to speed on it, but it says the medical examiner ruled the cause of death was blunt impact injuries to the head and hypothermia, as though he'd been attacked and then left outside to freeze to death. That doesn't necessarily tell us who did it, right? But then when you get to all the taillight DNA, they found the taillight. Her DNA was it was her taillight is basically what the prosecution says it can prove right by him. I don't know. Does that get us there? What else is there?
Well, the case is bizarre, if you want to sum it up in a word. And I don't know how much direct evidence the prosecution is going to have to show. Like, you think if the backup camera is working, you might see the actual crime in progress. So she might, Karen Reed might have some there. I mean, her defense is really, I am too drunk to remember if I killed my boyfriend. So I've got plausible deniability. On the other hand, why? If the police are framing her, not why would they frame her, why would they kill their friend? Right? Is this remember that case that wasn't that long ago where the friends were watching a football game and they all froze outside in the backyard? Like, was it one of those kind of weird situations?
That was drugs, I think.
That could have been drugs. And the police were like, I'm a police officer. I don't want to let's frame the girlfriend who was too drunk to know any better. Was it that? Or is she just in such complete denial that she doesn't remember running over her boyfriend when she was blackout drunk and having some sort of drunken fight with him? And the jury is going to want to know, like, if they're framing her, how did he actually die? And I don't know if Vinnie might know better than me at this point, whether the prosecution is going to have evidence in support of exactly how he died.
Well, the prosecution is the prosecution is saying he ran her over. So they've got the tail light is broken. Her rear right tail light is broken. Their medical examiner obviously will say what he's going to say. But again, it's the tail light. So he also had a cocktail glass in his hand. John O'Keefe did, that he brought from the bar. And they say a piece of the cocktail glass was inside her rear bumper. So you had the glass from his hand in her bumper, and then the tail light from the rear of her car on John O'Keefe. Now, what the defense is going to say is there's some peculiar things here, like why? Because the snowstorm happens after Karen Reed leaves. So she's there just after midnight. The snow starts around 2 o'clock. So by the morning, you've got snow on the ground. They're going to say, why is the tail light and the blood on top of the snow? Why isn't it on beneath the snow? They're also going to point to a police chief, a local police chief, who a week after this said that he found another piece of the tail light on the front yard. He happened to be driving by. And there's alleged connections between the officers at the party and the officers who were investigating the case. So that's what they're going to allege. I don't know. I think it's a tough sell, the whole conspiracy thing, but I think it's also a tough sell to say that she murdered him. I mean, in the middle is two people driving, drinking, one person getting out of the car, the other person doing a K-turn, and maybe he got hit.
But the thing is, Vinnie mentioned this, Jonna, they have angry voicemails from Karen Reed to him, like on the night in question at 1:30 a.m., saying like, you're an effer, I hate you, I think was in there. But they were clearly having an argument that was very passionate, that would support, the argument that in the heat of an argument, she might have done something very drunk that led to his death. And they've charged second degree. They're not charging first degree murder. So if that theory proves out, she got angry, she was drunk, and she intentionally ran him over, that is second degree murder, is it not?
That would be, unless is she leaving him angry voicemails after he's already, in a snowbank, and she has no clue that he's in a snowbank? That would almost help her. She might, she might be able to say, look, I got home. I had no idea that I thought he was at the party. That's why I'm calling and leaving him drunk messages and drunk texting him. That could be one way that the defense wants to go with this. And the other thing is, and it might not be part of the defense, did he freeze to death or did he die from the blunt force trauma? And if you're freezing to death at your friend's party in a snowbank, how does nobody know that you're out in the yard, again, freezing to death? Like there are some very bizarre circumstances surrounding this case.
What about the injuries that were shown on his body, Vinnie? Because we have a picture of some of the injuries, and I understand the defense is saying this was from the alleged dog attack. This is where she starts to lose me. Like, bullshit. It's all these slices on his arm. You're not buying that's
a dog attack?
Not even a little.
No. Well, here's what they're saying. Those are consistent with dog scratches, and they got rid of the dog afterwards. Like, the dog is nowhere to be found, so they can't test any doggy DNA. That was part of what they were alleging in all of this. And his attorney, he has two attorneys. He's got a local attorney, and then Alan Jackson, who you may or may not remember, is coming in from L.A. to do this. He is a big-time attorney. He ran for DA in L.A., lost, but he's the man who prosecuted Phil Spector successfully when he was on the other side. And now he represents, big time cases. And this is one that he has latched onto and has been literally on the courthouse steps. They are pointing the finger at specific people in the house. But a big ruling by the judge yesterday that the defense will not be able to mention any of their allegations in their opening statement. The third-party culpability, judge not allowing any mention of it in their opening statements. The judge says she's going to need...
You know what this is? This is like, you guys, of course, watch The Practice, right? The Practice. David E. Kelly's The Practice. By the way, that's such a fun one to go back and just put on your TV if you want to get old episodes of it. I've done it, but they called it Plan Being somebody. You're not allowed to raise it in your opening statement that you're going to say somebody else did it, but there are several witnesses who are going to take the stand and you're going to Plan B them, where little do they know, or maybe they will know in this case, you're walking them right into a trap to try to blame the entire murder on them. You don't have enough to say it in your opening, but by the time you get to closing, you'll have done enough to be able to argue it to the jury. The judge is going to allow that, Vinnie, right? You can't say it in the opening, but you can test it on cross.
Well, yeah, they have to develop enough evidence. And the judge, I'll tell you what, the judge is leaning towards not allowing any of this. We'll see how it plays, because all the buildup, every pretrial motion has been about this. And the protests outside have been about this. There's one other really big, important piece of evidence, which was a Google search on how long to die in the snow. It's a Google search on one of the phones of one of the women who was at the party. And initially, when this information was taken from the phone, it appeared that the search had been done at 2:30 in the morning. So if it's done at 2:30 in the morning, it has nothing to do with Karen Reed. Why would this woman inside the house be Googling how long to die in the snow unless the people in the house were putting someone outside to die in the snow? Now, the prosecution is going to say, no, your expert's wrong. It was really searched at 6:30 in the morning. So this is a huge piece of evidence. And that Google search was really what triggered all the support for Karen Reed, and has been one of the big things that started the Free Karen Reed movement up there in Norfolk County, Massachusetts, where it's no longer wicked cold.
Here's Karen Reed in May of 2023 speaking about a little her defense.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do. And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life. Yeah. I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why do you admit to it? She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
What do they mean? Why did she admit to it? Vinnie all smiles.
I've got it. Do you remember my cousin Vinnie?
Yeah,
when Ralph Macchio, right? And what did he say? He said, I shot the clerk.
Yeah.
I shot the clerk. That was the confession. What Ralph Macchio actually said was, I shot the clerk.
As we approach another critical election, many Americans are concerned. Recent studies show that an astonishing 56% of citizens report feelings of anxiety or dread about the upcoming election. But I want to tell you about AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. AMAC is more than a senior org. During these challenging times, they fight for common sense and for the U.S. to return to traditional American values. Visit amac.us/Megyn today to get an exclusive election year special, a 4-year AMAC membership for just $30. As an AMAC member, you not only enjoy money-saving benefits, but also the AMAC magazine, free Social Security and Medicare advice, a trusted voice in Washington, and a community of like-minded patriots. Take advantage of this election year special, 4 years for $30, and be part of the solution. Join now at amac.us/Megyn. That's amac.us/MEGYN. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.